place a wall inside of Revit, you first need to go to the Architecture tab. Then over toward the left-hand side, there's an option called Wall. Now, if you know what kind of wall that it's going to place, you can select on the picture of the wall. But if you're not sure which kind of wall that it will place, select on the word wall. That will tell you what kind of wall that it's getting ready to place. We can see that because it looks like there's a little bit of a curve here, this is wall architectural. If this wall picture had been straight, it would have been wall structural. And then there's also options here for wall by face and sweeps and reveals. But we won't worry about those right now. We'll just go with the wall architectural. For the type of wall that we need to place inside of this space, let's use the basic wall interior partition wall. And you can find that wall here underneath properties. If for some reason your wall does not say basic wall interior partition, click here on the type selector list and then pick interior partition off of the list. For the height of the wall, you can specify just how high that you want the wall to be, as long as the height is listed as being unconnected. If you'd like that wall to go up to a certain level instead, you can always do that by clicking where it has unconnected and then picking the level that you'd like that wall to go up to. For this example, though, I'll just go ahead and leave it as unconnected 3000. If for some reason yours does not say unconnected 3000, go ahead and change your properties now. I'm going to zoom in by just spinning the wheel of the mouse. And what I plan on doing is kind of an odd design, and that is to put a wall from right here across where this column is at over to the other wall. Now, before I draw that in, I need to know the location line of the wall. Wall center line means that we'll draw the wall straight down the middle of this basic wall interior partition. If I had chosen either finished face of exterior or finished face of interior, it would draw the wall either on the outside of this wall or on the inside face of this wall. Walls also have things called cores, and we can find what the core is by selecting on the Edit Type button underneath Properties, and then selecting on the Edit button next to Structure. The core is for either the exterior side or the interior side of the wall. So if you're drawing a wall along the core boundary, it'll be either the interior or exterior core boundary. It's wherever this gray is here in the actual wall assembly itself. Now I'm going to click OK. Click on OK one more time. Zoom in here toward the bottom by just spinning the wheel on my mouse. I'll leave all the settings just the way that they are. And I'll click right here. I'll zoom out just by, once again, spinning the wheel of my mouse just in the opposite direction. Now I'll spin the wheel of the mouse, come back over, click here, then hit escape a couple times on the keyboard to get out of the command. Now I have a wall that's going straight across, I'll call it our dining room kitchen area. Now what we probably don't want to have is have the wall go all the way through this big column that exists here inside of our floor plan. What some people will try to do is select on the wall, then they will try to split that wall by using the split element tool. They'll click like that, which will create a split here in the wall. Hit escape a couple of times, select on one wall, pull it up like this, select again on the wall, click, hold down on the little circle at the end of the wall, pull it back. Then you have a wall like that. The problem with doing that combination, though, is that you do not get a perfect cleanup here on the column. So here's a trick that you can do in order to get that perfect cleanup. First, I'm going to undo that split that we did before. And to undo the split, I'll come up here to the undo command. And I'll just keep hitting the undo command until the split is gone. Next, select on the wall. You'll know that you've selected on the right thing if the wall turns blue. If something happens like what you saw on the screen there where the column accidentally turned blue, just hit the escape key, then come down a little bit farther and then select on the wall. Now in order to really clean it up, with the wall selected, select Join Geometry. Pick the wall, pick the column, and then you'll see that the column and the wall have now been joined together. And now that they're joined, they no longer have that wall going all the way on through it. It's a nice cleaned up area. Walls have two different kinds of properties. An instance property, which is for that specific wall, or a type property, which will change all the walls of that type. Let's start here on the first floor plan by zooming in by spinning the wheel of the mouse, then selecting on this gray wall. We'll find that underneath properties, we have a variety of instance properties associated with this wall. One of the instance properties is how is the wall drawn, which is the location line. When the wall was drawn, it was drawn right down the center of the wall. We could change the way that the wall is drawn by either changing it to finish face exterior or finish face interior, which would mean that from here on out, the wall would consider itself having been drawn either on the outside face of the wall or on the inside face of the wall. We could change the base constraint or the top constraint. The base constraint is the bottom of the wall. If you set the base constraint to be at a level lower than the level that you're currently drawing at, that's where the wall will start, lower than you're currently drawing. If you set the base constraint to be in a level higher than you're drawing at, once again, that's where the wall will start, higher than the level that you're drawing at. Top constraint works the same way, except it's for the top of the wall. But with the top constraint right now, we can see that it has a setting called unconnected. Well, if we chose up to level, that would mean that the top of the wall would go up to whatever elevation that level was at. But by having it set at unconnected, we can then choose what exact height we'd like the wall to be. If I scroll down, some other properties include room bounding. Everybody has these objects called rooms. And whenever you place a room inside of a space, what occurs is that that room looks for any walls that it can find. And then it'll try to fill in that area with a room object. If room bounding is checkmarked, the wall will bind that room so that the room can't go beyond it. In other words, the room will find that wall as long as the check mark is here in room bounding. Structural. Right now the box is clear. If you're doing structural drawings, that's where you want to have a check mark in structural. Why? Because you can filter out the walls that are structural walls so that you only see the structural walls in your structural drawings. With the box cleared out, you'll see these walls, in this case an interior wall, a non-structural interior wall, only in your architectural plans, not inside of the structural plans. We also get other instance parameters, including length, area, and volume of the wall. Also, the phase that the wall was created in. In this case, it was created in the phase of working drawings, and phase demolished is none. If for some reason we wanted to have this wall look like it had been demoed out, we could then change it to a later phase, and then the wall would take on the properties of a wall that was getting demoed out. So the instance properties of a wall can always be found underneath properties. All you need to do is select on the wall and then look for the properties of this specific wall in order to adjust those properties so that the wall takes on the look and dimensions that that wall needs to have. Walls have some slightly hidden properties called type properties. And to see the type properties of a wall, let's zoom into our first floor plan, select on this gray wall, and then underneath properties, one of the things that we're looking at is called the type selector list. Now, the reason why it's called the type selector list as opposed to the properties list or the instance list is because anything that's on the type selector list is a different type of wall. A different type of wall has type properties associated with it. And to edit the type properties of a wall, you can go to the Edit Type button. Here we have the Type Properties dialog box. And within this dialog box, we have all the type properties associated with this type of wall. That includes the way that this wall will display at a coarse level of detail. It also can include such information as manufacturer information, a URL, which allows you to link to documents. You can input in type marks, fire ratings, the cost of the wall. All that kind of data can be part of the type of wall that we're currently using. I also want to point out that there's a function, and right now the function is listed as being interior. That's also the reason why this wall is named interior partition. But if we click where it has interior and then select on the little arrow over to the right hand side, we can see that there's a wide variety of different kinds of walls that we can create. We can have walls which act as a soffit or as a core shaft. We can do retaining and foundation walls as well as exterior or interior walls. One of the prime functions of this function of the wall is the ability to filter out walls of certain types. So if you only want to see a wall that has a certain function associated with it, you can do that through the view filters. So when you're putting together the type of wall that you want to create, always make sure to set your function to be the appropriate function for that type of wall. But there's more to wall types than what we see just on this menu. And that is, next to the word structure, there's a button here called Edit. These are all the different materials that make up this specific wall. We can see that there's a structure, which is made of wood studs of a certain thickness. Then we have on the outside of those studs a finished material. In this case, the finishes is an interior gypboard. On this other side, we also have a finished material, which shows up as being an interior gypboard. Any of the materials we can change by just clicking here inside of the box, then selecting on the little box that will show up over here on the side. Then you can pick any of the materials off of the list to be that material for your wall. I'll click on cancel this because I like the finishes interior gyp. You could do the same thing with the structure. So if you wanted this to be a steel stud wall, you could click on that button there and see if you can find steel studs and then have those be your interior structure. Or maybe you're making a masonry building, and for that interior structure, you may have a block wall. So you can just pick the appropriate materials. From here, we have the thicknesses. These are just numbers. You can type in whatever number is appropriate for that type of wall. And then finally, the last thing on this menu that I wanted to point out is that there's an option here for what's called a default wrapping. Now to see the default wrapping, I'm going to come up here to my edit assembly, hold my mouse button down, and just drag this over a little bit so that I can do a preview on my screen. Now I'm going to select the preview button over on the lower left-hand side. Now we're looking at the wall in a floor plan view. There's an option here for a default wrapping, and that's wrapping of the materials. At inserts, this is if something is inserted into the wall, such as a window. There's also options here for at ends. If we wanted the material on the exterior side to wrap around the end of the wall, we could select on exterior. See how that the exterior material is wrapping around? You also do the same thing with the interior material. Now, because of the exact same material, we really can't see the difference here with this kind of wall, but this is where you can choose to have the material wrap all the way around the exterior of your walls. And finally, whenever you've made your changes and you have the wall the way that you like it, you can click on OK, then OK, in order to save those properties as the type properties of your wall. One more thing. If you want to create a new wall from scratch, you can do that as well. If you come up here to Edit Type, you can then select on Duplicate. It'll ask, what name do you want to give this wall? Interior Partition 2 is just fine with me, so that's the name I'll give it. But you could give that any name that you want for your kind of wall. I'll click on OK. Here we have Structure. I'm going to come up here to Edit. And what I think I'll do is I'll add an extra layer of gyp on each side. So I'll come over here where it says Insert. I'll hit Insert twice. Make sure that this layer material is highlighted. Then I'm going to move this layer material down by selecting the Down button. For the Finish material, I'm going to come here where it has the Structure 1. I'm just going to click in here. And I'm just going to match the same number that we have up here. Oftentimes I'll do a Finish 1 if it's going to be truly on the outside, but I think I'll do a Finish 2 here. A Finish 2 here. Materials. Once again, I can pick whatever materials that I want. I'm going to do this Finish as Interior Gypsum Wallboard. I'll do the same thing here. So now I have a double layer of gyp on both of these. And I also need to give thicknesses to each one of these gyp boards. Oops, I'll make this be a 10. And this a 10. See how we now have a double layer wrap on this kind of wall? I'll click OK to that. Click on OK to that. I'll select on this wall. We can see that this is this Interior Partition 2. But right now I'm not seeing the double layer of wrap, so to see those extra layers of materials, I'll change my detail level by selecting on the Detail Level button. And then what I want to do is change that to be a fine level of detail. But it appears that I may have some sort of view template currently applied. So underneath Properties, I'll go to View Template, click on ID here, and for right now, I'll just say None. Come back here, change it to Fine, and then finally to see the double layer materials, I'll come up here to View, and then turn on my Thin Lines to give everything a look that's just a very thin line weight. And now we can see we have the double wrapping of materials. In this case, it's going around the end because I specifically specified that it go around the end. I can zoom out like this. We can see how the materials stop here at the columns. And then we have the double wrap of material down on the other end. I've created an environment where it's easier to learn the basics behind wall sweeps and reveals. The first thing I'd like to do is, on one of these walls, draw a wall baseboard, but have that baseboard be part of the wall type. To have a baseboard be part of a wall type, you first need to select on the wall. Then, once the wall's been selected, come up to Properties, and then select on Edit Type. I really want to leave this interior 3 1/8" partition 1 arrow wall there, but I want to add a baseboard to another wall that has the same properties as this type of wall. To accomplish that, we'll select on the Duplicate button. Then for the name, we'll remove the 2, then type in base, and then click on OK. Now we have a wall with the same properties, except it's now named base. And now we need to add the baseboard to this wall type. For the structure, go to the Edit button. Here underneath Edit Assembly, the first thing we need to do is enable our preview. I'm going to make this window just a little bit smaller by just clicking on the line over here, holding my mouse button down and then dragging, and then selecting on the Preview button. Now we can see a preview of the way that the wall looks in Plan View. Now I want to change the way the preview displays so that it shows section view. By turning on the section view of the wall, we now have some extra properties available to us. And those show up underneath Modify Vertical Structure. The first thing we need to do is add a sweep to this wall. So select on Sweeps. Now a sweep is really just a two-dimensional profile shape that gets extruded along the entire length of a wall. This profile shape will become our baseboard down at the base of our wall. Click on the Add button because we need to add a profile shape to the wall. Now we could just use the default profile shape, which is a rectangle, but I want to change that to be a different profile shape. So click where we have default, then click on the little down arrow to the right. What you'll see on the list are all the different profile shapes which are currently loaded into this project. And unfortunately, none of them are really appropriate for that profile shape that we want down at the base of the wall. So what we need to do is load a new profile shape into the project. Come down to Load Profile. After clicking on Load Profile, there's two different spots where you can load that profile in. The first area is that if you have your Revit family content loaded, you could scroll down until you find Profiles, double click, and then you'll have a listing of all your different profiles. And if you've done this already and you can find those profiles, just stay where you're at. If for some reason you don't have those profiles available, you can go to your exercise files folder, go to chapter 3, and I've included the same profile shape folder here underneath chapter 3. Once you're underneath profiles, there's a few different areas that we can go to, and the first one that you may go to is called Wall. If you double click on Wall, you'll see that we have cornices, parapets, different shapes that can be added to our walls. Personally though, none of these are the shapes that I want to add, so I'm going to click on the little back arrow, then go to Finish Carpentry. And here we can see that we have different kinds of profile shapes, including bases. And that's what I want to add is one of these base shapes. And I don't care which one of the bases that you use. I'm personally going to use base 3, but if you choose to use either base 1 or base 2, everything will work exactly the same way. Click on Open. Now, all we've actually have done is just loaded that profile shape into the project. We now need to assign that profile shape to the wall. Here you can see all my base 3s, and it's loaded in each size associated with that profile shape. I'm just going to choose the largest one, the 7¼ by 9/16. Also, there's an option here for materials. By clicking where it has by category, there'll be a little dot over here. You can click on that little box or dot, and it'll open up the material browser. And from here, you can choose any of these materials off the list or create your own materials for that baseboard that's going to go around the perimeter. Now, I just want something that has a different color associated to it than what the wall has. So I'm just going to pick this cherry off the list. Next, select on OK. Now we have a profile shape that has a certain material associated with it. There's also an option here of From. Base is the bottom of the wall. Top is, well, the top of the wall. Distance is how far off the base or the top that you want that profile shape to actually be when it draws it in. You also can choose between the exterior side or interior side of the wall. And what I want to do is have this profile shape to be on just my interior side of the wall. Once all that's been accomplished, come down here to OK. Then click over here inside of your preview area, move your cursor down toward the bottom of the wall, and then just spin the wheel of your mouse. And what you'll see is that new profile shape now added to your wall type. I'm down here, click on OK. Click on OK one more time. Now, if we zoom in, we can see that for this type of wall, we now have a baseboard of whichever shape that you chose down at the base of that wall. And if we would change any of the other walls in our project to match that kind of wall type, they too would end up getting that baseboard down at their base. So select on one of the other walls in your project, come up to the type selector list, click on the type selector list, then pick the 3/8 partition 1 hour base. Click over here, and you'll notice that this wall also has that baseboard there on the interior side of the wall.